So, Rivals 2, they went into a lot more detail about the mechanical changes. We got to see some more of the 3D models.
You so fucking precious when you smile.
And today, we're going to be going over the first part of that. We're going to be talking in depth about, what they changed, the overall direction the game is going in from the very beginning. Like, before they even put out the trailer, before we knew any of the other mechanical changes that were coming, we saw that shields were a thing. Rivals has always struggled with a lack of meaningful defense options. Like, we've had parry, and parry is really just not interesting once you get to a high enough point. Like, high-level Rivals is all about parry baiting and just, like, making your opponent flinch in that spot. And that is, like, what everything revolves around. And low-level Rivals, people just don't know how to parry. They just don't have the timing right. And so, yeah, I think it makes top-level play a lot less interesting and makes it harder for people to get into the game. So the fact that they are shifting to shields makes a lot of sense. Whenever anyone is pressured in Rivals, by far the most common option is, all right, I'm going to attack you. I'm going to hit you out of this. It's so much harder to actually hold down a position on the stage because your opponent's just going to be pressing buttons all the time. What this has meant for Rivals as a whole, like the actual neutral game, is that so much of it is based on movement. It's based on how you outmaneuver your opponent rather than interactions between two moves that you're throwing out. Like, you look at Smash and people like throw out moves to space all the time. They throw out like safe aerials and that's how they control space. But that's actually not really as good in Rivals because, for one, Whifflag, which we'll get into later, and two, yeah, you can either get parried if you just swing, or your opponent also has the movement options to punish you for that. So what shields are going to mean is that you do have to actually know what you're doing when you approach someone, and also when you do have that lead on them as far as stage control, they have to work that much harder to actually get it back from you. We're still going to have parries. That's an important thing to note. But the fact that shields exist, like, I expected, before any of the other changes as well, shields to make half of the current Rivals player base quit the game when Rivals 2 comes out. Because you can't mash all the time with shields. Like, it's just not an option. When your opponent doesn't have to time the counter to what you're doing precisely at the exact moment, so much of what current Rivals meta is just falls apart. Now, the thing is, there's a lot of different ways you can do shields, and we've already seen that there's no shield poking, which, thank God. Like, one of my biggest gripes of playing any other platform fighter is when I shield and I'm blocking, but I get hit anyway. So the fact that there's no shield poking is such a godsend. I don't understand why it's a thing in Smash in the first place. And it feels like one of those things where Smash did it, so all the other platform fighters try and do it. And it doesn't feel good. And there are some games that do it differently. Like, if you look at a game like Rush Rev, they have a shield which you have to put in front or behind you, which I think is interesting. But yeah, I think just having this aura around you, your toe steps out at the wrong time and you get hit by like a multi-hit move. Like, it feels like your opponent got lucky every single time. And sure, there is skill expression through that, being able to consistently know when your opponent's going to hit you, where they're going to hit you. But for the vast majority of players, which they are trying to now appeal to, like, the whole point and the whole shift that they're going to is for mass appeal, shield poking does not make any sense to add as a mechanic. We got shields, we got grabs, we got ledges. They showcase in the trailer 2 years before the game is gonna come out. Yeah, we have ledges. I am so torn on this because I think the big problem with a lot of what they're doing as far as what they're revealing is that, again, it's 2 years out and they can't elaborate on any of it. They're like, yeah, we're gonna do ledges in a way that's cool, in a way that's better. But we can't show you what we mean, so just trust us. Not a good idea. I've played a lot of different platform fighters with and without ledges. I've played 64, Melee, Ultimate, Smash 4, Rivals, Slap City, Rush Rev, Icons. There's a platform fighter game on your phone that I've played. so much of what made Rivals offstage game interesting was the lack of ledges. Like, so much of, the recovery mix-ups and, just how you have to play once you hit someone off stage is based around everyone having a good recovery that can make it back to stage, unless you're Sylvanos, but that's a different topic for a different day. And so the fact that they're adding ledges means, they're fine with all of that changing. And that kind of goes into the overarching theme of what makes Rivals Rivals. I think that's the core thing of what we're trying to discuss here is does the lack of ledges, does that make the game? Does the lack of grabs and shields, does that make the game? Because what all of these mechanical changes are doing is making the game more closer to Smash. It's making it a more traditional platform fighter that people who play other platform fighters will be able to pick up more easily without having to learn all of these new mechanics. That is the main concern for all of us is this still going to be Rivals? And that does segue into the next part pretty well. Is there still hit falling? Yes. Because let's be real here, hit falling is the greatest mechanic in any platform fighter ever, right? Maybe wave dashing, it's on par with wave dashing in holy shit, this is incredible. If you make a tier list of all platform fighter mechanics, I feel like it's on the same par. As far as the aggressive combo game and what makes Rivals feel so damn good, hit falling is by far the biggest part of it. And when you think about it in that respect, when you think about, how good hit falling feels, and then you compare it to parries versus shields and then ledges, sure, doing the up B wall jump stuff is cool. Sure, getting a big parry punish that can feel good. But in comparison, I don't really think shields and grabs and the lack of ledges are at the same level as hit falling is. I feel like it's more understandable for these things to change in comparison to something like hit falling, where if that was removed, this is my own personal take. I actually think the lack of ledges can make recovery in Rivals kind of boring at the absolute top level. Because what I do with every single character, my objective when I'm picking anyone up is literally, how do I rinse and repeat you off stage over and over again so that you don't get to play the video game? Because if you get good enough at the game and you account for every single recovery mix-up that someone has and you just react to them, you do just rinse and repeat people. That is literally what you do. It's what I do with Raster, it's what I do with Krag, it's what I do with Ori. It can get kind of boring when you have someone that's that good. It's boring to play and it feels like shit to play against because you have to come back. Your only option is to go back on stage. You don't have the option of going to the ledge and then, having a mix up there. You have to come back on stage. And I think it does present a lot of balance problems that you avoid by having a ledge and giving the opponent who goes off stage more opportunities to actually get out of the corner. I do think that for the long-term competitive future of the game, say you just leave Rivals as it is right now, or you make Rivals 2 and not have ledges, it would get pretty old for people. Because if you just add in ledges and you keep all the other mechanics, they're still trying to push the game to be more accessible to more people. And as you get more players in the game, you're going to get more people who exploit these things. I think one of the biggest issues that Rivals has had as far as actually seeing what the game would be like at the top level is the fact that there's not many people who play this game at the top level. You look at the amount of mix-ups and optimization and all of that Smash players do, and you compare it to high and top level Rivals, and it's a world of difference because Rivals is a much smaller game, and the people who play this do so because they love the game, not because of any sort of monetary incentive. Where if you get, the best in the world at Smash, that's an actual career compared to Rivals, which is where people just play because it's fun for them. And so the meta, as a result, hasn't been pushed anywhere near as far as it could be. Like, I think if Rivals had Fortnite levels of money, everyone would be camping all of the time because movement is so good in this game. Like, I could do an entire another video about that. I could make that entire separate point of discussion, that Rivals players aren't actually very good at Rivals of Aether. If you guys want to see something like that, where I actually go like in depth about why Rivals players suck, I would love to make that video, and if you guys want to see it, I will make it. Is there still a parry? Yes. I am glad that there is still a parry, because I think parry does have some interesting interactions. I think especially with like projectiles, the fact that you can parry someone's projectile, it puts them in stun. I think that's a fantastic way of balancing it. Yeah, if only for the sake of projectiles, I'm glad parry is still in the game. Like, that's the thing about shields and parries and all of that. Like, there's two aspects that go into how shields define a metagame, and that is what you can do out of shield, how quickly you can jump out of shield, how fast your options are out of shield. And the other is how fast your opponents can actually move and position themselves around your shield. Like, those are the two big things. And from what we've seen, you can still move really fast in Rivals. You're still gonna have tons of crazy movement options, and that's still gonna be the case, which means sitting in place shielding and locking yourself into that is going to give your opponent time to position themselves and space themselves properly. Now, you can't just run in and spam buttons at them like you can in Rivals, but you'll still be able to reposition yourself properly around that shield and, you know, go in for like tomahawk, grab, stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to be to the same degree as Smash 4 was. I don't think it's going to be like super hyper defensive. Because even if it is like that on release, the devs don't like that style of gameplay, and they will change the game so that it doesn't feel like that. Because that's the difference between the Rivals devs and the Smash devs, is that the Rivals devs want this to be a competitive feeling game and an exciting and engaging and fast-paced feeling game, whereas the Smash devs primarily wanted to make a good video game that anyone could play, regardless of how the actual competitive meta shaped out. Because people like watching competitive Smash and playing with, you know, no items, Fox only, final destination, you know, that kind of thing. But don't necessarily want to go to a tournament, don't necessarily want to get super good at the game. It's just more fun for them to play that way because esports is becoming more popular and they enjoy watching people play the game that way and then playing that way with their friends. That's the audience Dan's targeting here. Does it have Whifflag? No. So this is a massive change that has caused, I want to say, the majority of the controversy over the past few days. Overall, I can see this change being good. It's just like you do have to balance every single move to fit in to this framework. Because yeah, again, like the problem with Rivals 1 is that even with Whifflag, people still just push buttons. Like, you fight an Orcane player, you fight a Zetterburn player, you wouldn't know that they have Whifflag. You would have no clue that those characters have Whifflag. Because yeah, if the weak moves are like, you know, what it's like on hit in Rivals, that's still really fast. That's really, really, really fast. And that's why I'm not so worried. Because it's not like they just cut the lag from everyone or added a bunch of lag to everyone. They are, you know, balancing every single move respective of each other. And we won't really be able to tell what that feels like until we can play the game. But I don't think the removal of Whifflag is a big deal in the grand scheme of things. Because again, if you just mash buttons, there's a shield. If the options are anywhere like usable out of shield, like if you can do stuff out of shield, then it'll be fine. It's not a big problem. This was a big part though. I have a lot of things I could say about this. Because for me, the way I play Rivals of Aether is that I hit someone, I see how they're drifting, I react to that, I hit them again, and I keep doing that over and over and over again. And because Drift AI is so powerful and people love to hold in, you can just like go up all the way to the top of the screen. And that's how I get my tornado combos in this game, is because everyone likes to hold in. So I just hit them all the way up which won't be a thing if you can't drift so hard in. Like if I hit you with forward air and instead of going straight up, you go like up and out, I can't do the same thing. I have to then go off stage, use my jumps. So that's going to change a lot. Like that is going to change so much of how advantage state works in this, and disadvantage. That is one of the things that like I'm a bit concerned about, is that when you're in disadvantage states, so much of what made Rivals combo game interesting is that depending on if you're drifting in or out, that is a massive shift in where you end up going, and your opponent does have to stay on top of you that entire time. If your opponent is trying to guess where you're going to drift and they guess wrong, like say you drift in and they're trying to guess that you're going to DI out, you go behind them, then you can reverse on them. And one thing they did mention is that they're changing how just trajectory as a whole works so that it will feel similar to Rivals 1. It's one of those things where they can't really describe it through words. You gotta feel it yourself. Because what it sounds like what they're trying to do is make it so advantage state is more consistent. So that, you know, you can get the same kind of combos every single time with minimal influence from your opponent's DI. Which is a very big shift from how it is in Rivals. That is going to change how like literally every single character works. Because some characters can't really follow drift that well. You have characters that are already very consistent. You have characters like Crag, who can get the same kind of combo on you every single time. And so if other people are able to do that, yeah, I should just wait for the subs to finish. Yeah, you have someone like Crag, who a lot of their strength comes from the fact they can get these consistent, like long drawn out combos, regardless of how their opponent is DIing. You know, they can follow them like all of the way. Same with Raster. You know, you DI super far out, I can still follow you. You DI super far in, I kill you. And you kind of make that homogenized where everyone is able to consistently follow up on combos. Is that bad? Not necessarily. It's just different. It takes the entire method of Rivals balance, where some characters, like, they get a couple of good hits on you and they're able to kill you off of that. Some characters have to go for this long drawn out combo game. And yeah, it just changes the entire dynamic of how Rivals combo game works. It gives a bit less agency for the people being comboed, and it takes a bit of the depth and skill requirement out of the people comboing, for the trade-off of it being easier for newer players to pick up and get their hands on and mess with. Is this going to completely remove the skill expression in Rivals? No, not even close, because a lot of the skill expression in Rivals comes from consistency in the other aspects of movement, consistency in like being able to hit fall, along with accounting for how your opponent is going to DI, which will still be the case even without drift DI, and also just like how you position yourself in neutral, stuff like that. I think those are all still going to be very important aspects to Rivals 2 neutral game advantage state, because you can't actually get to advantage state if you're just pressing buttons all the time. And that's still the case with Rivals 1. Like, in Rivals 1, you get to a certain point and people just whiff punish you every single time. It just works against the majority of people, and it's no longer going to do that in Rivals 2. In Rivals 2, you won't be able to get away with just mashing. What are your thoughts on the double jump changes? Oh yeah, so double jumps now reset horizontal momentum. That's a very, very tough one, because I need to know more about what that means. In the context they were talking about that, it was specifically for stuff like plat boosting. But if you're comboing someone, do you then like freeze midair if you double jump? And yeah, like you're playing Rana, you side B, you do a jump out of that, do you just like stop in place? Because if it completely freezes you, that doesn't seem like it would just be fun. Like, you take any character that's trying to combo you, like combo someone in the air, hit someone with an aerial, you double jump, and you just freeze? Rip Raster if that's the case. Like, if you completely resets it, goodbye Raster. Imagine Raster trying to combo someone across the stage, and then he just does double jump fair, and then he's just boom. So again, it's one of those things where I wish they didn't talk about it this far out, these types of mechanics this far out. That's something where like we don't have enough information to actually know what that's going to mean and all of the implications. Now this is where it gets really cool. The Pummel system. Pummel system is not going to be like Smash, where you grab someone, you mash the A button to pummel them, and your opponent mashes to get out of the grab. The Pummel system works a bit more like Killer Instinct, the way Dan set it up there, because Dan worked on the Killer Instinct team. And so basically, you grab someone, you have 3 options. You can grab them and throw them, and that is guaranteed every single time. You can grab them and you can do a pummel, which does a certain amount of damage and has a different trajectory. Or you can grab someone and do a special pummel. The person getting grabbed instead of mashing has a 50-50 every single time they get grabbed. They guess either attack or special. They press that button. If the person grabbing them also presses that button, it's a throw break, like it's a tech. Or the person grabbing them can just throw them and avoid the entire 50-50 in the first place. And the cool thing about the specials is that, like, take a character like Rano, we actually saw that in the trailer, I'm pretty sure, where it just, like, puts a bubble on the ground if you do, like, the special throw, something like that. Then your opponent can get put in the bubble. And every character is going to have a unique mechanic for their grab. I think that's sick as fuck. Like, I think the way they're handling grabs is really, really cool. Pummel needs a pretty high reward. No, I agree. The attack pummel should do a lot of damage. The special pummel should have a special effect because you just have the option of it being negated entirely. Like, you already got the grab on someone, and then they then have the option of just negating everything. You better get a lot of reward for then guessing correctly after getting the grab in the first place. I think that's totally fine. So I think that'll be just a really, really cool system because you, again, also have the option of just throwing them and getting the consistent follow-up every single time. I think this puts a very, like, interesting spin on grabs that we haven't seen from literally any game. And this is where one of the areas where, like, sure, there's shields and grabs, but Dan's doing it in his own way, in a way that's still departing from the traditional formula. If this is the general way they're going to be doing things, where, like, yeah, they take, you know, they give you the Smash mechanics that everyone knows and people can, you know, get more accustomed to, but still have its own level of depth to it, I think we'll be fine. I think this, you know, that all of the people saying, you know, this is just a Smash clone, this is just, you know, Diet Ultimate, the Furry Ultimate at this point, they're not actually looking at what the game is doing. They added like 3 new specials, actually. So they have the Pummel special. They have a Get Up special because they introduced Knockdown State now. So instead of doing a Get Up attack, you can do a Get Up special. That was the Rano mechanic we saw, which is he got knocked on the ground and then he put down a bubble with the Get Up special. Like, that's cool. And it's such a simple way of adding depth, too. Like, it's just another thing to account for. Instead of your opponent gets knocked down, they do a Get Up attack, or they do, you know, tech roll in, tech roll out, tech in place, no tech. It just adds another layer to it that you have to be accounting for. And then they do the same thing for ledges, where if you go on the ledge, every character has a Get Up, you know, special attack, in addition to the normal Get Up attack that they have. They showed Rasters in the trailer where it's like there's a dive bomb that it goes way up into the air. And also, many characters hold the ledge for longer than either a roll or attack, so you can use Get Up Special as a way to edge hog opponents if you time your invincibility just right. And so they use the word edge hog very deliberately here. This would imply that they're doing a hog system instead of trumping, but I imagine the way that they'll do it is so you have less iframes overall compared to a game like Melee, where you just, like, grab the ledge, go down, grab the ledge again. They said they're gonna do ledges more interesting than Smash has done ledges. And from what we've seen from, what is it, like, yeah, the pummels and, you know, the Get Up specials, the whole way they're doing the grab system, the whole way they're just introducing more mechanics to the ledge itself, I want to believe them. I really do. I really think that, like, ledges can be done well. If you look at Melee and Slap City, those are 2 games which have edge hogging. But then you look at Rushdown, you know, Ultimate, Smash 4, most of the other plat fighters, they try and go for the ledge trump mechanic. And so we haven't really seen too many games actually try and make the ledge hog mechanic work too well. It is not very common, and it's something that like got left behind with Melee in a lot of respects. It's, you know, kind of viewed as a dated way of doing ledges. And so they're trying to reinvent that. They're trying to make it more interesting, make it more exciting. And I really hope they can do it. I really, really hope they can do it, because Rivals does by and large appeal to the Melee and PM crowd. That is the vibe that the game is going for, more so than Ultimate, more so than like all of the other platform fighters that followed in Smash's wake. Dan likes how Melee and PM feels. And there's a reason that Melee has stuck around for 20 years now. It's because at its core, it's a really cool game. It's just a hard game. Like, it's so cool to watch, but to play the game and even just move around competently, you have to spend like 100, 200 hours, if not more, just messing around in the game. And so that was the mission for Rivals 1, is let's take this feel of Melee and make it more accessible to people. But the problem they ran into is that, one, people don't like pixel art. I like pixel art. People who like Rivals like pixel art, but the vast majority of people don't. So they made it 3D. And then they wanted to separate it with no ledges. They didn't add shields and grabs because of like technical limitations. Like, Dan had to get the game out. Putting in all the extra sprites for shields and grabs would have, you know, taken too much money, taken too much time. So that also ended up separating it from Smash. But because there were all of these differences, like they were so, you know, fundamentally different from how Smash worked, it ended up isolating a lot of people who just wanted to try out the game. It made it much harder to make that transition from Smash to Rivals, where even if you find someone who doesn't care that the game is pixel art, suddenly they have to deal with not having a ledge, and they have to deal with not having shields and grabs. So what Dan is trying to do with Rivals 2 is get that same idea of, we're gonna make this feel like Melee. We're gonna make this feel like PM. We're gonna make it easier to actually play. We're gonna make the mechanics themselves more interesting. That's the core mission statement, essentially. They want to do Melee, but better, which is very hard ask. That's a very, very hard ask and a hard mission to do. But they want to take, you know, the things that make Melee cool and expand on them in a way that 20 years of platform fighter development have led them to. Like, that is what we're gonna see if they can do, is if Rivals can take the things people know about Smash, the same basic fundamental concepts of ledges, of shields and grabs, and make it more accessible and do it in a way that's more interesting. Take the audience who would love to play Melee and love to play PM, but can't because it's too hard, give them the same kind of feeling for this new game, make it easier to do that, and make it more familiar to them so that they don't have to go through all the barriers with Rivals 1 and the mechanics of Melee. So yeah, I think that's a good end point for this. Oh yeah, before that, never mind. There's one last thing I want to look at. Video's not actually over. So if we go to the trailer, I just want to look at this one combo from Zetterburn. Where is it? A lot of people say Rivals 2 looks slower. You know, it looks like just not like the same game. Let's just look at what Zetterburn does here. You're gonna tell me, like, sure, there's a grab break in there, like a couple of grabs. You're gonna tell me this isn't a Rivals of Aether combo? This right here, that's Rivals. This is literally Rivals with the added grabs too. Because like, you look at this, especially here, this is where it gets this whole drag down. It gets like the forward tilt, down air, shine, wave dash, up tilt, drag down air, back air, into grab, into another grab, tech chase down tilt, sweet spot fair. This is Rivals. I don't know how people can look at this and think it's somehow a slower version of the game. So I'm not worried about the advantage state of Rivals feeling good, even with the removal of Drifty Eye, and even with, you know, all of the changes they're doing. I think Rivals, once you hit someone, is still going to be Rivals, no matter what. So I'm gonna edit that into the video some. And if I am gonna make this a video, it's only fitting I do the outro. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about all the changes coming to Rivals 2. I'm so bad at this, by the way. Like the intros and outros, it's gonna take time for me to get that. Outro music, yeah, first try.